Hey, I'm Anthony Ha with TechCrunch, and I am here with Mark Johnson, the CEO of Zite. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
So you're wearing Google Glass, and I think you've actually got a version of Zite running up on it, right?
I do. It's pretty exciting. I got Glass maybe 3 weeks ago, and already we've got a really cool version of Zite that reads off the headlines of my top stories right on my Google Glass.
Right, and actually, I should back up a little and say that for people who don't know what Zite is, it is essentially sort of a news reading, news aggregation app, right?
Yeah, and what really sets us apart is it's an intelligent magazine. So we have 40,000 categories, we look at millions of articles a day, and we have really smart algorithms that run behind the scenes to try to deliver you personalized news that you like. So no two people's Zites on this planet are the same. It really figures out the kinds of things you like to read and delivers that to you.
Great, and so maybe do you want to sort of talk us through some of the features on Google Glass?
Sure. So we start off pretty simply. I mean, the reason we did Google Glass is not because there are a lot of users on it right now. Obviously, it's an invite-only program. It's a $1,500 piece of hardware. So we don't expect a lot of users, but we've always been about new platforms. We're a mobile-first company. We were on the iPad first. Now we're on a lot of mobile platforms. And I really see a revolution coming in wearables, and we want to make sure that we understand kind of what users want in wearables. So I've had this pair of Google Glass on for pretty much 3 weeks straight. Okay. And we're exploring what Zite can do. So right now, it basically will show you your headlines, but eventually we want to get really smart, for example, with notifications. Since it's a personalized news service, we can be much smarter about what kind of notifications we deliver to you. It's not just mass to everybody, it's what's important to me.
Right, so do you actually want to show it to us?
Yeah, absolutely. So you simply tap on, you kind of go over to where Zite is, and you can go through all of your top stories in Zite and kind of it'll read it to you. There's a bone induction speaker here, and it'll read you the story. And eventually we'll have features like sharing and showing it on your phone. So that's what it does right now, though.
So to what extent was it something that, like, when you started to think about Google Glass and by extension sort of other wearable devices, it was pretty obvious sort of what the design would be in terms of transferring it? To what extent did you have to kind of rethink the experience?
I think right now we're kind of taking the tact of kind of looking at what other people have done and imagining kind of what I want on my Google Glass. I mean, honestly, the reason we did it was I just see a revolution coming. I mean, everybody is going to have wearables soon. Right now, it seems kind of like weird, and it's not clear why you would want Google Glass. It has these really special use cases. But I think within a year or two, a lot of people are going to be wearing wearables, and I want to understand what that news consumption paradigm is in this new world. So it's really about us exploring. I expect this first version to be kind of cool, but to get much cooler as we understand what other wearables users want.
And is this something that, I mean, so you guys are right now just sort of, you have a version that runs, but you don't sort of have a release date for it yet, or is it actually going to be like released pretty soon that you can talk about?
Yeah, on the same day that we launch Android, we're going to launch it on Google Glass. So I'm hoping that we'll get some Google Glass users and they'll start to give us feedback. I mean, one of the great things about Google Glass users right now is it's all early adopters, and it's all people who are really willing to give the apps that are on it feedback. So we're kind of excited to hear not just what I think, since I'm pretty much the only user right now, seeing what other people in the Google Glass community think, and take their feedback and try to integrate it into the product.
Right. Well, we should get to the new Android version in a second, but one last question on Google Glass, which is, even though it is sort of just a test case of one, but when do you find yourself actually like using Zite? Like, are you at home, or are you like in transit?
I think directions are really useful. I think that just Google searching is really cool. Right. Like, I asked it the other day, who are the members of the Traveling Wilburys? We had all of them except one, and it actually showed me a card with the members of the Traveling Wilburys, which was just really cool. We passed it around, and everyone was like, whoa. And the final thing that they just added that I think is amazing is Evernote integration. So you basically say, take a note on Evernote, and you can dictate a note onto Evernote, which sometimes I'll pull out my phone or my iPad for that, but a lot of times I just have a thought in my head, and I think that's the kind of cool stuff that's gonna I think make it more appealing to the masses.
Right. So you like you mentioned, you have also a new version of Android coming out. Although from what I understand, it'll also, for people who've seen the iOS version, it'll look kind of familiar. Yeah,
definitely look familiar. Although we've really leaned into Android. What I found so I switched from Windows Phone to Android kind of at the beginning of this process, and I found that a lot of apps seem to just take their iOS app and throw it onto Android,
Right.
and it's not even a very good version of it. And we really wanted to make a good version, so we've adopted a lot of Android UX standards. We have some Android-specific features. So, for example, we have a widget. We have S Pen integration on Samsung devices. And also really cool is not only will be on phones, we'll also be on phablets and 7-inch tablets. So, all those users of Android devices will be able to get all the cool stuff that is in Zite 2.0.
Mm-hmm. And so when you think about sort of where this is going in terms of all these different devices that you want to be on, to what extent is that like really exciting, and to what extent is that like really overwhelming and sound like just a crazy amount of work?
I mean, I think it's both in some ways. In one way, it's a lot of work for a startup, right? We want to be. It's important for us to have a really high quality app on multiple devices. Like while we're working on Android and making Zite very Androidy, we're also embracing iOS 7 and trying to figure out how to make Zite on iOS look very iOS 7-like. And that's really hard for a small company to do. On the other hand, it's really cool because Android is different than Windows Phone is different than iOS, and it's cool to see all of these mobile vendors trying to differentiate themselves and trying to figure out what their users want. And I like seeing that kind of innovation in the marketplace. You don't see that necessarily on the desktop as much. But at some point, it's going to have to consolidate because mobile companies, especially startups, can only deal with so many platforms at one time.
Right. And so I guess the last question, just because I think it's sort of an obvious follow-up to what you're just talking about, is that you guys are actually part of CNN, but you run. So you talk about yourself as a startup, and I mean, you still look at yourself that way and feel that way?
Absolutely. I'm the only CEO at CNN, right? Like we report up. We report
other
up to
than the actual CEO.
We report up to the president of the network, who reports to the CEO of Turner. And it's really a symbolic move in some ways, but it's a signal both inside and outside the company that. The buck stops here. That I still own like what comes out of the company, and it's really important for us because we wanted to make sure that we took all the good things that were Zite and took all the good things that were CNN and combined them without messing up kind of the magic that's Zite. So I think both parties have been really sensitive to making sure that we've succeeded as an acquisition, and I think it's gone really well. I mean, our 2-year anniversary is going to be on August 30th, and I'm really proud of that.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, and download on your Android device.